This should be me streaming online. I look like such a goofball trying to figure out if it's working. Hello. Excuse the first 30 seconds of this, if I am streaming. How can I tell? My channel? Hey! Can I watch myself while I stream? What? I can see how far the lag is as well. This will be great. The sound sounds quite bad now. This is me just testing. Hey, Surf, you're a person who's watching. Is the sound like completely terrible? Alright, no, I think I've got my sound working, but my face isn't on the screen. Oh, it's gotta be on that side. Do I press this button? Is this the thing? Do I click and drag? I've never used this software before. How do I get my face from that box to this box? Plus? Nope. I'm gonna hope I can edit this afterwards. Transition. Duplicate sources. Nope. Did that work? Yay! Cool. The magic of the interwebs. Cool. I totally don't expect anyone to watch this. It's like midnight in this part of the world. I've just had so many video ideas buzzing around in my head, and I like write them all down. I have so many scripts. Now I'm working full time. I'm finding it really hard to, like, I guess do this work-life balance thing, and I'm like so critical of this idea, right? Because, you know, like some people are working 40 hours a week, and then some people are unemployed and underemployed and they want more work, and often the people working 40 hours or more a week are stressed and they want more time, and it's this weird kind of like way that I feel like the capitalist system kind of strings people out in different ways. Oh cool, I'll get some non-Americans watching. That's fine. So there's all these things I want to do, and the context for this is a lot of context. My wife and I just got back from our 2-week honeymoon in Japan, and it was so awesome. Oh no, my laptop needs power. 1 sec. honest, don't really expect anyone to watch this. This is kind of just for me to clear my head in a way, I guess. Yeah, so my wife and I were just in Japan for 2 weeks on our honeymoon, and it was such a unique experience. I've never been to Asia before, ever. And suddenly we've got the first week, we're traveling around the south of Japan. Pretty much no one speaks English apart from the people at the hotels and Airbnbs that we're staying. We also stayed one night at a Buddhist monastery, which was super cool. And like on the way back from Japan in the plane, you know, my head is buzzing with all these things I want to do. I saw so much art, did so many things. Like I want to get into sculpture. I've always had this fascination with metalwork. And we went to, where was it? All the Japanese that I learned those 2 weeks is just like fallen out of my head now. I was getting alright, you know, with the basics, like, hello, how are you? Thank you very much. Arigato. And then you gotta bow, because that's, the Japanese are very much about being polite, which is super cool. And so we went to a museum where there were these sculptures. This guy made them out of clay and then used plastic mold and then used some kind of, I guess it's copper, inside the molds and making these big statues. And then when he was old, he was like, "Fuck people! I just wanna do sculptures of cats." And he was just like, his goal was to do 100 cats or something. It was so cool. I'm like, man, I want to do that. And where I live here on the peninsula in California, there's this place, if you drive down to the beach, you go over the hill, and just as you're coming down, there's this big yard where there's just about 4 massive dinosaurs, about 8 feet high, made out of big welded pieces of scrap metal, and they're so awesome, and I love that. And I took metalwork for like half a semester in high school, and you know, we made tiny candlesticks, and I remember not really enjoying that. That would be something cool to get into. I don't even know how one starts a hobby like that. Hey, I want to make like 10-foot high sculptures of T-Rexes. Like, how do I approach this? I'm not sure. You know, and I want to do slackline. I want to keep fire spinning. And when we were at the Buddhist monastery, I started reading this book on Buddhism, and it was really interesting. I realized I'm an atheist, and I realized I often have defensive reactions to people who tell me they're religious, and it's because I have so many queer friends who have come from religious backgrounds with a lot of pain and trauma and guilt and shame. People who have been disowned by their families and their communities, and I feel so protective of them. And I was wondering why I was totally fine with Buddhism, which was a big religion in Japan. It's because I don't have any friends who have come from Buddhism with pain, with guilt or fear. So I don't have any animosity towards that. You know, I have people who have come from, friends who have come from like Catholicism and like Jehovah's Witness and Islam with such pain about being queer, and that makes me really protective of them and like angry in a way, you know. But I don't have any friends who've left Buddhism. I think I have a couple of friends who were interested in it. I don't know if they started it. I don't think I'd convert, because that's not something I feel like I need in my life, but just the idea of it and kind of that sort of moral view of the world is really interesting. I got home from Japan and my master's degree had arrived, the scroll, which I finished last year, so now I have a Master of Philosophy, which is super cool, and I want to keep reading about philosophy, and like either writing pieces or doing videos, and I've got these ideas for videos, but you know, these ideas would take about a full day of setup and then another 2 days of recording. I'm so happy for ContraPoints that she gets to do that full time, because she has the time and the space, and now like the resources as well, which is like really awesome. But I've also just gotten a full-time job, and so it was this feeling of like having so much I want to do, but also having this work commitment, right? And it's different in the US because I freelanced in New Zealand and Australia doing film, and Denmark for a bit as well. And that was fine. I supported myself, kind of. I was underemployed a lot of the time, but like I mostly managed to pay the bills. But here, it's like if for some reason my wife lost their job, then we lose our health insurance. And if you don't have health insurance in the States, you're like pretty screwed, right? And to get health insurance as a freelancer, you need to be part of like a guild or a union. And to get into that, you need a certain amount of hours per year. So it would take at least 12 months, probably longer, because like I need to network. So there's like all these ideas buzzing around my head, but then I'm working and I get home and I'm exhausted. And I think about friends that I know that like need jobs or need better paying jobs or need more hours because they're only working like 20 hours a week and they can't pay the bills. And I'm just like, you know, it's either time or money, right? And the sweet spot would be like if everyone got 25 or 30 hours and like decent pay. And with automation, that would probably be the best case scenario. I just want to make art, you know? And I said I wasn't going to make any more gender videos this year, but then I ended up quitting Lotus Tea, which I didn't think I was going to, so I want to talk about that for a bit. I've got like a whole script. I want to talk about the idea of escapism and leisure as well. There's a guy called Bertrand Russell, who wrote about leisure as a virtue, and I really love that concept. And I had a few adults in my life when I was younger who shamed me for escapism, like for having too much imagination, right? And you know, it was like science and maths are how you're going to get ahead in life, and you know, they were saying the words, "We're supportive of you, do whatever you want," but just through like comments and attitudes, there'd be this kind of insidious idea that art and like world creation, right? Like writing novels or scripts or you know, people pitch games. These ideas of like creating these spaces where imagination lives is not a viable career, or isn't like an honorable or appropriate career. Like I want to talk about that a bit. And then also this year I've been reading a lot about relationships, because when I was single, I guess I just looked at relationship books and I was like, I don't need those, I'm single. Like, what am I gonna learn? I don't have a partner to like practice these ideas with, I guess. And now I do, and we're making sure, my wife and I, that we're reading the same relationship books at the same time, which is, I think, really important if you want to talk to your partner about relationship stuff. It's weird to me that, like, if you want to be a mechanic, you have to like learn and be trained and maybe go to like have an apprenticeship, and you know, if you want to be a doctor, you have to study medicine. If you want to, you know, everything, pretty much everything, you need to be trained or have a degree or study in. And even like physical sports, like I might not be a professional rock climber, but I watch a lot of videos about it because I'm really interested in the technique. But then we spend, for a lot of people, having a fulfilling love life is their top goal. But then we don't encourage or set up systems that allow or encourage people to learn how to do adult relationships. Does this make any sense? Like, you know, if I'm going to be a bricklayer, I'm going to say, hey, how do I lay bricks? And someone's going to come and show me, and I might learn about what mixes will make them set best, and what kind of conditions are good for drying, and you got to keep them wet. You can't just set and forget, or the concrete will crack or whatever. Even just stuff like that, there's some kind of education involved. Whereas this massive thing in your life, like being married or having a long-term partner or partners, and there aren't really, there's this idea that either if you're really into reading about relationships and love, there's this kind of concept that it's like a fluffy, non-intellectual, like feminine space. And I say that because it's shit that it's seen as bad, probably because it's seen as a feminine thing. Like this idea of the only people who read books about relationships are like, it's like this idea of like the suburban housewife who doesn't have anything better to do. Whereas I've been reading a lot of books about relationships this year. I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot of people who could benefit from this. And they're all directed towards romantic partnerships. But, a lot of them can help with friendships as well. And there's just so many ideas I'm reading about. The first book I read was called Attached, and that was really good. The basis is kind of the way that you react to instability in your relationship, and there were 3 ways that they said that people react to instability, and there were 2 particular ways, if you reacted in those ways, that you could come to particular kind of clashes. And it was sort of eerie seeing that. It's that idea, like, if you argue with your partner, often the thing you're arguing about isn't the problem. There's like a larger problem. It's not actually about who's taking the trash out. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you're just like, just please take the trash out or whatever, right? We don't have that issue. We're pretty good with the trash because Claire has an alarm on their phone, so if they're home and no one else is, then that's all good. But yeah, like how to see your relationships with people, how to see if you're arguing, why you're arguing, and what those patterns are. And a lot of it, like, this is definitely not Freudian, actually. Part of the book was saying about how, like, Freud's idea about the psychosomatic issues being internal were quite inaccurate. Like, a lot of the issues that people have with communication stem from external sources, at like growing up or whatever. An example of that, I don't know if I'm making much sense. An example of that is like if you've had issues with communication or bonding with your parents, then you're likely to grow up and repeat those communication issues with adults that you bond with because you never kind of learned how to do that properly. And the other book I'm reading, I finished Attached, that was awesome, highly recommended. And then the other one I'm reading right now is called Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. And that's about, she kind of created this whole different kind of way of doing couples therapy, which is like emotionally focused therapy. And it's about the basis, like the reason that she created this different way of approaching couples therapy is because a lot of therapists in the 90s and earlier were basically pushing people to not be codependent. And this idea of codependency being really negative, and this idea that everyone needs to be independent and self-sufficient was the thing. And if a couple was having a problem, a lot of therapists were saying, okay, you need your own hobbies, which is still important, right? You need your own space, you need to be independent, you need to be able to function by yourself. And this term, like, this idea you can't love someone else until you love yourself, which is, sorry. This idea that you can't love someone else until you love yourself is bullshit, because if you think, oh, I need to like focus on myself now, I need to love myself, you're acting as though you're relationships with other people aren't part of you, and of course they are. Humans are social creatures. Part of us is the way that we relate to others, and if those relationships feel strenuous or insecure, that affects us. And if we cut people out because we want to try and work on aspects of ourselves, then when we don't have those nurturing, secure relationships, and that's really bad. I use they, them. Should I write in person? I'll also write here. They, them, pronouns. Thank you for asking. I got a little crown because I'm the one who's doing the live stream. So I'm like the live stream royalty. I was using she, her for like a week, and that felt really strange. Well, people at work still call me she, her, and my family does, and that's fine. But when like my friends and other queer people use it, I'm like, why are you using the wrong pronouns? The other thing is when I switched to she, her, I had a few people online, a couple of like women online say, oh, welcome back to the fold. And I'm like, that's a really strange way to put it. I was just changing the word that I want you to refer to me as. Like, I haven't changed my gender. I still identify as agender, and I also identify as a butch lesbian and non-binary. And there's a lot of ways in my head that those things are not contradictory, even though I realize on paper they might be. And like, that just makes sense to me, and I can't be bothered explaining how it works. But it's, you know, we're social creatures, and socially, it's complex. Yeah, like she, her are fine, but if you know how to use they, them, and you're comfortable with it, then that's what I prefer. I was at an LGBT pride center recently, and a complete stranger was talking about me to someone else and used the word they, the pronoun they, and I hadn't met this person before, and like just hearing someone use they for me when they didn't know me, like I felt real chuffed. I felt super stoked, and I've never felt that about she, her pronouns. I've never like, it's like she, her is fine. I don't get offended. I don't get upset. I don't feel like I'm getting misgendered. There are no negative feelings associated with she, her. But when people use they, them, and when people use they, them in like just a really casual way, not like they're trying really hard, but just like, oh, are they parking their car in that spot? Or will they be moving it soon? Whatever the context was, then like, oh, it just feels really good. It's just good. Yeah, so I think that this idea that like codependency is a problem is really toxic and wrong and like low-key dangerous, because like I guess I don't want to like be like evolution, because I know that a lot of things have changed and we have technology now, and some things in evolution aren't great, but like evolutionarily, if a human was by themselves, they'd die like super quick. They wouldn't be able to survive, you know. People have done it, but we thrive much. We might survive by ourselves, right? But we thrive in communities, and that's so important. That's also the reason why I had 2 job offers back in January, and one of them was filming houses for this company and going home and by myself editing the videos for the real estate videos and then sending them off. So I was alone by myself the whole time, and I did that for a week. And like, I thought it would be fine, but it really wasn't. Like, I really didn't do well in that environment. You know, getting the camera gear, being by myself. The only contact I have with my colleagues was like text or email. And now I work at this rental store at the front desk, so I get the camera gear, I give it to the customers, I talk about it, sometimes they have questions, we discuss what camera or sound or lighting equipment's best for their needs, I deal with probably 100 customers a day, or like there's 2 of us at the front desk, so we have that many. I probably talk to about 50 of them. And so it's like a lot more interaction, and it's not quite what I want to be doing. I want to be filming. I want to make art. But at the same time, this environment's really good for me because I get that feeling of community. Like, oh, you like film, I like film, or like you do photography, I'm kind of interested in that. I get super nerdy about lenses. Like, oh, we got this new camera that came out. Have you seen it? Just having that feeling of like other people liking things I like and talking about it and connecting with humans has been like super great for me. That's not to say it's not hard work, like I can feel quite drained after a full day, but I'm just gonna read these comments. What are your thoughts on Blair White and the situation where she got assaulted by a male feminist? I was following news stuff last year and it got too stressful, so I haven't been. I've kind of disconnected myself this year and sort of been focusing on me more, so I don't know anything about that. Blair White. Isn't Blair White, is she a trans woman who does conservative YouTube videos? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, codependency in regards to not being able to separate yourself from someone emotionally isn't great. It depends. What do you mean by separate yourself from someone? Because the context is the Hold Me Tight. The Hold Me Tight book begins with Sue Johnson talks about how there was this idea back in like the 40s, 50s, 60s that adults were having mental health issues because they were too codependent as children, and the idea was that if a child was in pain or having a tantrum, that the parent should just leave them alone and I guess give them space, which like could sound fine on the surface, but to the extent that if a kid was going in for an appendix operation or a kidney transplant, these are like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, that the parents weren't allowed in the hospitals with them because then the child might be too codependent on the parent and not be able to like develop into a proper adult. And at that point, you're like, well, I mean, we are codependent on people, and I guess maybe the differentiation is it one particular person that you're being codependent on? But, I think it's like common knowledge that prisoners in solitary confinement like do really, really badly, like have a super bad time. It's terrible for your health. It's a if you want to give someone mental health issues, put them in solitary confinement, because that is like the worst thing you can do for the human brain. It's like obviously we as a species are codependent on emotional relationships with other people. Taking the other person's problems and absorbing their feelings. Yeah, so kids need secure attachments while they're developing. And so Dr. Sue Johnson's kind of take on that is that doesn't stop when you're an adult. You don't become an adult and suddenly not need secure attachments, right? You still need those, you just form them in different ways. The start of the live stream was me trying to figure out how to make a live stream happen and use this software. It was like a blank screen for 2 minutes because I couldn't figure out how to get the video to work. I don't think you missed much of me talking about that. Oh, I'm sorry you had those experiences with other non-binary people. Kunimitsu? Is that pronounced right? Yeah, it's interesting. The internet isn't a great place a lot of the time. I posted a video a while ago about the title was Butch Lesbians Disappearing or something. And I think in that video I tried to be really objective, but some people called me out on this, and I totally respect their opinions, and I think that they may have kind of been like picking up on something that I was unaware of, in that like a lot of butch lesbians on YouTube that I interacted with were like super aggressive towards me. Were saying like, you know, you hate your body because you had top surgery, you know, or like you're trying to be a man, or you're obviously a man, but you hate men, so you don't want to admit it to yourself. And a lot of them were like, yo, what's wrong with like the LGBT community, because you're butch lesbians are like leaving us and our community's breaking down, and like a lot of stuff like that. And so for a while I was feeling really uncomfortable like referring to myself as butch, and then uncomfortable or like feeling really apprehensive about being in lesbian spaces and interacting with lesbians. And that feeling was just because of people I'd been speaking to on YouTube, and I guess a little bit on Twitter, but mostly on YouTube. But then, you know, taking a break from like social media for a while and being out in the real world, especially in the Bay Area. Oh my god, like in the Bay Area, like the lesbian spaces here are very, very specifically trans inclusive. The women I've met in the Bay Area have been super wonderful and like really respectful. And I've met a few people who identify as cis butch women who have had top surgery, and then a few people who identify as non-binary lesbians, and like that being a totally cool thing, and also a few trans women who are butch lesbians, and like being in that space, and like actually I feel really comfortable referring to myself as a lesbian in offline spaces and offline communities. It seems like, I don't know, like YouTube and Twitter just brings out the bad ones, like regardless of what community it is. What has been the worst kind of homophobia, transphobia you have experienced? I assume you mean like homophobia / transphobia, not like them being a combined thing. I don't know, it's my opinion, and I stand by this mostly, that the majority of homophobia is directed towards gender nonconformity. Apart from legislative, you know, like if same-sex marriage is illegal, then that affects everyone who wants to do that. But, you know, like street harassment and online harassment is often directed towards the LGBT people who are gender non-conforming. It's hard to tell if it's homophobia or transphobia. Like, people read me as a male a lot. 2 weeks in Japan, the only person the entire time who read me as female was this white lady from Germany. All the Japanese people thought I was a man. Like, there wasn't any question. I had this full-on half-hour conversation with this lady at the airport, and then she sent me the letter because they lost our bags. Like, dear Mr. Britta Lauritsen. I'm like, Mr. Britta Lauritsen, I haven't gotten that one before. Yeah, the bathroom thing is really the one thing that follows me that I can't shake. You know, like I have had street harassment where I'm walking along and someone yells out the car window, like calls me a faggot or tells me to wear a dress. That was strange. But like I can always go home and like, you know, get over it, I guess. Like I remember it, but it doesn't affect me anymore. But like the only thing that I guess has kind of amplified since I came out when I was 18, 9 years ago. Oh god, I feel old. I came out 9 years ago in 2009. It's like I used to not be scared of going into public restrooms, and now, like, I have major anxiety about this. Like, I never used to have anxiety before. I used the women's restroom once in Japan. Oh no, twice actually. But this one time I'm thinking of, because I got my period a little bit, like, I don't get it super heavy because of the Mirena, but obviously they don't have sanitary bins in the men's, so I was like, I'll just pop into the women's, it'll be fine. No one will care. And I, like, went in, and this Japanese woman turns and looks at me and just starts screaming her head off. And I'm like, ah, like, panicking, I'm freaking out. I can't explain to her in Japanese that I'm not a man. So I just went to the stall, did my business. It was like this squatty hole stall, so I'm like there squatting in this Japanese style toilet with this lady screaming outside, and I'm like, just want to do my business. And I left, and it was horrible. And I get yelled at a lot in women's bathrooms, so I use the men's a lot, and, like, weirdly, I feel way more comfortable using the men's, even though I don't identify as male, but men don't scream at me. But now my hair's getting really long, and, like, people have started calling me ma'am and miss, like, at the supermarket nearby, and I'm like, oh, well, fuck, what am I gonna do at the bathrooms? Like, will it get a certain length and the men are gonna start yelling at me? I don't know. It's like past this magic hairline. The magic hairline is hair. Like, shorter than that, and they're like, good day, sir. And then, like, it just passes your eye, and they're like, hello, ma'am, how can I help you? This is in the Bay Area. Like I said, in Japan, it was just Mr. the whole time. I'm from New Zealand. I lived in Australia for 4 years, so my accent is a little more Australian than most Kiwis, but I still say dance, which is the proper Kiwi pronunciation. Yee. So what was I saying? I have so many videos I want to make, and so much art I want to do, and I also want to socialize, and I also want to exercise, and I don't want to go back to rock climbing because I don't want to bust my elbow again, so I'm looking at maybe swimming or some kind of martial art, perhaps. You know, and then I want to, like, learn about all this relationship stuff so I can be a better partner. And, like, I also want to get 8 hours of sleep a night. And it's like, I know people say, like, oh, you know, burnout's real, take care of yourself. But, like, for reals, taking care of myself would be, like, only working 30 hours a week. But you can't just go to your boss and say, like, hey, for self-care this year, I would prefer to drop an entire day, especially because we're so understaffed at work at the moment. That, like, what are you gonna do? And then at the same time, I feel so hyper-conscious about even complaining about this, because I know, you know, I've been there as well. I've been chronically underemployed for 3 years when I was living in Australia, and that was far more stressful. Like, here I am saying, like, I want more time so I can create things. But I remember when it was like, hey, I'd like more money so I don't have to, like, sell my property to pay rent, you know. I've also been there. It's just, like, you can't win, right? Like, if you have a part-time job, then your hours aren't consistent because they kind of use you to fill in the gaps when full-time needs more work, needs support. And I haven't met a single person who has a part-time job where their hours are regular. I don't know if that exists. So, like, then you can't really make plans because you're living week to week with your schedules. You're like, I don't know if I can go away for that 3-day weekend in August because I have no idea if I'll be working the Friday or the Monday until, like, way close, and then it's too late to book whatever you wanted to book. But then if you're working full-time, then, like, you're too tired to go to stuff, or you want to go to, like, a social event after work, but you have to be up at 6 in the morning. And then if you don't have any work, then you're, like, super screwed, because in America, there's this idea that if you're not working, then you don't deserve to live, basically. I mean, like, conservatives could argue against that, But at the end of the day, the short of it is the idea that if you don't have a job, you don't deserve to have a house, and being homeless halves your life expectancy. Like, it's completely absurd. What are your thoughts on RuPaul's recent comments on fully transitioned queens? Oh, I know this one. Didn't he say that he didn't think they could be drag queens because it was cheating or something? Yeah, I think that's bullshit. I used to be a drag king in Australia for a few years, and that was super fun. Being a drag king really helped me explore my gender in a way that I didn't have the space to anywhere else. It was super cool. It was super fun. I'm really good at like choreographing lip sync shows. It's like a completely absurd skill that, like, why? My singing voice isn't great, but like, I can choreograph a pretty great lip sync show. And like being able to explore in that space. And we had a few drag kings who transitioned, who went on full dose tea, got top surgery, and they, like, a couple of them, one of them I'm thinking of specifically, kept performing for years after transitioning in the drag king space with the same drag king name, same like sets, you know. So he was a man doing drag as a man. So he was a dude, a trans guy who was a drag king. And like, no one gave him shit for it. We all totally welcomed him. He was like an integral part of the community, right? And he used the drag space to explore gender, and that helped him realize that he was a man, and that's what he wanted to be full time. And that space, and like, you shouldn't have to give up something that you really love, you know, if you decide to transition. Sorry, it's really late here. I should keep my voice down. My housemates are trying to sleep. And like, I feel like the same should be accessible for trans women. Like, basically, if you're a drag queen and you really love that, and then you realize you're a woman and that, you know, you want to be that full time, you shouldn't have to then make this super hard decision about whether you want to like give up performing or not. And I mean, the other thing is, I know some cis women who do like what's called bio queen shows, so basically like exaggerated makeup and like performing femininity in a like exaggerated kind of way as an art form. And like, if cis women are allowed to do like basically like drag queen shows, then why wouldn't trans women be allowed to? I'm finishing high school in less than a month, and now I'm really afraid of the working life. I don't mean to scare you. It totally depends on what you do as well. You know, are you going to college? Because, oh man, I went to film school for 3 years. Best decision I ever made. It was amazing. I made so many friends, so many great memories. Had a wonderful time. And it was also a really good kind of transition from high school to work, because it was more hours than high school, but less hours than like actual work. But you know, we did do short films, so during finals, our finals were like make some short films, so we'd be working 12-hour days, but then not full time. So it really kind of got us into this like embodying like the physicality of having to work that long. You know, it also depends like which country you're in and what kind of conditions they have. I didn't mean to scare you. Yeah, it totally depends on what you do. Like, when I'm freelancing, I love it so much, and you know, we do 12-hour days for 6 weeks, and then I have a couple of weeks off, and it's really intense, but it feels really fulfilling. And I guess, like, I love my job right now, but it doesn't feel artistically fulfilling. And maybe that's a lot to ask. I want a job that's full-time and pays well and fulfills me artistically. But hey, I can dream. Am I into video games? I used to play Pokemon a lot as a kid. I play Pokemon Go sometimes on my lunch breaks, occasionally. Actually, wait. This is the only like digital game that I play, but yeah, I don't play super often. I did get a Farfetch'd while I was in Asia because you know, you gotta do that. This is so cute. Look, I got a shiny Mareep. Oh man, the color on this is awful. It's pink. It's pink. And then the normal Mareep is this one. No, that's not what that's not what I want. Where's my normal Mareep? This is the normal Mareep. So basically I have like a big pink sheep. I just realized I haven't named it something. Hey YouTube, what should I name my pink Mareep? Wait, is this gonna... Wait, it's because I've got this massive light on it. There we go. What should I call it? It's a little lightning sheep. It's so adorable. No, this year, for the first time in my life, I have been playing D&D. And it's really awesome, and I'm a huge nerd, and we did a session today. It's like 4 hours, and we're in this haunted dungeon, and I'm playing a sorcerer, a chaos sorcerer with fire magic. And it's like super cool. You know, I played a bit of Neverwinter Nights and Guild Wars when I was younger, and this is way better because it's like, you know, you're doing the fantasy dungeon crawl fighting stuff, but it's also like role playing and acting. And our dungeon master, who prefers to be called a game master, and I can't remember why. Some D&D politics. Our game master is really cool with the encouraging the role playing. So basically, she's like, I won't make you roll for something like a persuasion or intimidation if you like role play it skillfully enough. It's like we really have to actually get into our characters. My character's chaotic good, which is also super fun to play, because I would always play chaotic evil when I was like doing the online games, which is fine if you're by yourself. You just run around and hit things with a sword. But like role playing chaotic good is really cool because like finding that line between. I remember in Neverwinter Nights, sometimes I'd do an action and I wouldn't know if it would give me chaos points or evil points. Like I wouldn't quite be able to figure out the differentiation. So like having to understand how you can be chaotic and good is really fun. So you basically have no regards for the law, but you have a moral code that isn't necessarily set in stone. So you're working towards like the good of elf kind or whatever. Mankind? Species kind? People kind? What is it when it's all the sentient beings in D&D? But like, not necessarily in the way that, that like the lore of the land would necessarily want. Anyway, I know, it's super fun, yeah, I'm playing a sorcerer. A chaotic good sorcerer who like, at level 2 you can choose like I get a dragon blood or chaos, and there's like a third one I can't remember, but I chose the chaos one. So it's really funny if you cast a spell and you roll a 1, like to hit, then you have to roll a d100, and there's this big table of 100 different effects that can happen, and some of them are like, so it's chaos magic, right? So like sometimes your magic goes awry, and one of them is like you turn into a plant for a round, or like the nearest enemy to you becomes invisible, or like you cast fireball on yourself. I don't know, and like most of them bad, so it's not actually the best kind of strain, I think, of sorcerer magic, but I think it's the funniest. I don't know, I think it's cool. Do I still rock climb? No, so I messed my elbow up in September and I haven't been back since. My elbow was very painful for a very long time. It stopped hurting about late February, maybe. So it's like not even been 2 months. I'm doing some rehab stuff at the gym, and I went to a personal trainer, no, like the people that do rehab for your body, like sports therapists. I went to him once back in like December, and he gave me some exercises to do. But my doctor said if you bust a tendon twice, then like you're pretty screwed. So I've busted it once, and I really, really want to make sure that it's fully healed before going back to rock climbing. I want to get a slack line. The problem is in our backyard we only have one tree, so like you can get these kind of metal anchors that go on the ground. They're like $200 or something. And also, how would we mow the lawn? Unless I push it behind the bush in the corner. That might work. Does anyone slackline? I want a slackline. Do you still talk to your ex who's straight now? Yeah, we chat occasionally. We mostly get along. She identifies as pansexual. This is a new development. This was only recent. I only found out because of her Twitter. She identifies as pansexual, but she has a fiance now who's a cis man. We chat occasionally. Like, we're not best buds. When I told her that I was getting top surgery, she sent me like a whole page in Facebook Messenger of like crying faces. Which is like not the supportive message that I wanted. You know, mostly she tries, but she's not a bad person. You know, some people you're like, you're alright, I'm alright, but we don't really click super well. Now you're gonna ask, why did we date if we don't click super well? Man, I was 18 when we met, and I'd like just come out and I was still figuring myself out. We had a lot of fun together. You know, we did some cool things. I had a chaos mage collapse a house on me. I'm gonna try really hard not to do that to my party. I haven't rolled a 1 yet on any attacks, so we'll see. Yeah, I did slacklining at a camping trip last year, and that was cool. I was determined. My goal for the whole camping trip was like to walk from one tree to another without falling, and I did it. But I spent a solid 3 hours one day. I think what really helped is that I took a few classes at a Ninja Warrior gym in the Bay Area, and there's an obstacle in the Ninja Warrior course, which is like this big rolling foam thing. And it's just like one big rolling foam thing, and you're like, yeah, I'll just stay in the middle, that's fine. But a lot of people try and run across, and then it goes unstable and flips them off. And so we were learning on how to walk on that, and you really have to just, you know, take it slow, not too slow, because then you'll also fall. There's an ideal speed. But the really helpful thing, which will take me 5 seconds to explain, is that you balance better if you have one foot on the thing you're balancing on and the other one out. Then like some people go like step, step, try to balance, and then step, try to balance, and then you fall off. But if you go balance, step, balance, step, balance, does that make sense? Then like it's easier. Where you differentiate butch woman and female bodybuilders? I think of butchness as more as a like aesthetic appearance. You know, like I was at a house party just now. This is why I'm drinking a cider. So I was at a house party. I was expecting it to go really late. I started the cider, and then everyone's tired because we just played laser tag for 2 hours, and like it was actually a lot of hard work. So I was like, oh well, I can't drive home after I've drunk this. I need to like wait a little while. So I took it home with me on my motorbike. I just put it in my pocket, my backpack pocket. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, there's this woman there who so they all know each other from like through aerial silks, and a few of them do pole dancing, and some of them do other stuff. So I think she teaches aerial silks, and she also does weights at the gym. But like aerial silks, you're holding yourself up by your arms a lot. So like, I'm kind of scrawny now. This woman, she's like super femme as far as I know. She's straight. You know, she was wearing a dress and had her long hair up in a ponytail, but like was super ripped, like guns like a guillotine. And you know, I wouldn't call her butch because her style and aesthetic wasn't butch. Like I know some really scrawny butch women who like have no muscles, but it's like the way they present themselves, the way they carry themselves, the way they see themselves. It's like I think of gender sometimes, or like not gender specifically, but like part of presentation is like an energy thing. Not like chakra stuff, but like the vibes you give off. I don't know, like the something. I don't know. Yeah, it's super late. I know, it's so late. It's ridiculous. Go to sleep. What am I doing? It's almost 2 a.m. Do you consider yourself a bodybuilder? I did briefly for a little while. In early 2013. Yeah, in early 2013, I spent 2 months of my life just focusing on seeing how ripped I could get. I was like eating 5 meals a day and then having a protein shake at night. And it was actually the hardest thing was feeding myself enough. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't want a 5th meal, but it's part of my plan. And I was doing like 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning before work, 1 hour afternoon in the evening after work, like 5 days a week. I didn't have a social life. It was like I was really proud of my results, but it's totally not sustainable, right? Like I did that, it was awesome, took some photos, felt proud of myself, had a 6-pack and like hella guns, but like I much prefer having friends, you know? So I definitely don't now. I think to think of yourself as a bodybuilder, you have to at least do bodybuilding, like, and put yourself into it. Bye, Alex. Yeah, I've definitely lost a lot of muscle in the last 6 months. Part of it, most of it because I stopped rock climbing and I spent ages like not filling that exercise with something else. And then also I stopped tea, my low dose tea as well. It's like both of those things like fit all my t-shirts again and stuff that were really tight last year. I don't know why I'm showing you this. I just bought this top because they lost our clothes on the way to our honeymoon. They lost our bags, and then Singapore Airlines gave us $100 to buy new clothes. Aw, why are you anxious? That sucks. Yeah. Part of the reason that I kind of haven't made that many YouTube's videos, all of the videos of the YouTubes, this year is like, I don't know, I hate to talk about it, but like, there's been a lot of mental health stuff going on with me in my life. January was awful. I was in such a bad space. I think I posted a video in January, and I'm like so impressed that I managed to keep myself together. Because I have to get a job. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah. I went and saw a therapist a couple of months ago, and the first thing she said to me, well, not the first thing, she like introduced herself and we chatted for a bit, but then she said, do you have any interest in going on meds? Like, I've been having a lot of anxiety the last year and a half, but like, I've never really had anxiety before, and I feel like because it's a new thing, it's probably external and something that I can fix through therapy and not meds. But anyway, she asked if I wanted to go on meds, and I said, well, if I go on meds now and I've only just started therapy, then if I start feeling better, I won't know if it's the meds or the therapy. And if I don't need the meds, I don't want to go on the meds. So I'd like to do the therapy for a while first, and then if I feel better, then I don't need to go on the meds. Because I have a lot of friends with like bad reactions to mental health meds. Like, I have a really good friend in Australia who's on antidepressant, Prozac, I think, Xanax. And she's just tired all the time. She sleeps like 9 hours a night, and she still is exhausted all the time. And when she's off it, she's not exhausted, but then she's really depressed. So I like to avoid meds if I need to, you know. Winter is refusing to leave Quebec. Oh my god, yeah, winter is so terrible. We had the first like warm day today since probably November, and we were playing D&D, and our game master said like, hey, do you guys want to play outside? And we're like, yeah. So we're sitting outside on the table rolling dice in the sun. It was so good. This is why I couldn't live in Denmark. I mean, I did. I probably I've lived in Denmark like 4 times for about a year at a time, maybe 2 years. My brother's still there and he's fine, but like for me, every time it was winter, I just get so depressed and miserable. Because like, it's overclouded for months and months and months, and you don't see the sun, and that sucks. Yeah. Yeah, so I was seeing 2 therapists for a bit. One of them was really helpful, and the other one was like, her style, she's lovely, it's just her style was like not really what I needed. The one who I've left her now. I broke up with one of my therapists. I left her because her style was the one where she like asks you a lot of questions and tries to get you to come to your own conclusion, which maybe helps for some people, but for me it's like, if I could come to my own conclusion by asking questions, I would have already. Like, I need some external information. My other therapist is super cool because she gives me books to read. She gives me well, she doesn't give me the books. She's like, go get this book. If she gave everyone books to read, she'd run out of books. She's like, I recommend this book. You should read this book. And she also says like, some people in this situation try this thing, and like, here's a visualization exercise, and like, next time this happens, write it down and we'll talk about it. Like, a lot more direction, which is way more helpful. Yeah, the therapist that I broke up with wants to have one more session with me, like for closure or whatever. But I only went to her for like 5 sessions, and like, I really didn't feel like we were getting anywhere, so I don't really understand what the closure is going to be like, because I feel like there needs to be an opener for there to be a closer, and I didn't feel like we'd really gotten anywhere. So I guess it maybe depends on like how long you see them for. And also, I don't know if I need to see 2 therapists. Like, the lady that I'm seeing, she specializes in something else that's not therapy. That's not therapy. She specializes in something else that's not anxiety or depression or grief. and I was like looking to work with someone on like grief and trauma and anxiety and depression stuff. And the other therapist is super great at what she does, but like it's not an area that she works with or has experience working with, and B is something else. I don't know why I said B, but the other thing is like I don't know, because I'm seeing her once a week and I was seeing the other lady once a week, so like sorry, I was seeing her once a week and the other therapist is a non-binary person, and I was seeing them once a week, but like 2 hours a week of therapy was like getting to be a lot as well, because like therapy is emotionally exhausting, and then I'd come home and like have to process stuff, so that'd be like my whole Wednesday and Thursday night just like eaten up like you know, and I do want therapy to be a long-term thing, and that wasn't feeling very sustainable to me. Yeah, so I feel like the therapist who I therapy broke up with just felt like someone trying to be my friend, who was like talking to me and like helping me, and she's like, no, you are a good person, and it's like, cool, but I can get that from my friends, like I need something else, right? And the other person is really great at what she does. It's hard to kind of explain what she does, but it's effective. I can feel like it's helping, and the other one like wasn't. And I'm pardon me, my health insurance does cover therapy, but the catch is, this is so stupid, the catch is the therapists that the health insurance covers only work 9 till 5 Monday to Friday, which is exactly my work hours, 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. So either they cover the cost of the therapist, but I have to take a couple of hours off work to like drive there, have therapy, go back to work. So and there's like a copay of $20 a session. So it'll be $20 a session, and I make just under 20 an hour. Well, a bit less. I make $19 an hour. So it would end up costing me like 2 hours of work that I would be missing. So that's almost $60. And the therapist I am seeing in the evenings is $60 anyway. So like, it actually turns out to be exactly the same. So like, and I don't know if my company would give me 2 hours off for therapy. I know some people who have done that for like single sessions, but I don't think they'd do it, make it a weekly thing. I need to get a job so I can move out so I can see a oh, you're in Quebec? Did you say that? Like, wait. Canada? Is there also Quebec in Europe? I'm gonna Google Quebec and pretend like I'm not Googling it and like I know things. Things to do in Quebec. Hey, Quebec. Oh wait, I've been there. I've been to Montreal. That was super fun. Yay! Yeah. Do you live in Montreal? I had a lot of fun there. Oh. Yeah. It's so weird to me that the Republicans, like conservatives in the States, like every time a mass shooting happens, they blame it on mental health issues, but then they're really adamant about defunding health services and definitely not making mental health services available to people. And it's like, if you really believe that that was the problem, then you probably should fund mental health services. It's like, it's not guns, it's mental health problems. But you can't have money for mental health services. Well, then there's still going to be a problem. Like, just to be clear, I don't believe that it's mental health issues. But if it were, then it would be super helpful to fund them. That's okay. The other thing I don't get right. This drives me crazy because it like it really frustrates me. And it's like the same all over the world. A lot of governments will subsidize health services except dentistry. It's like, why do your teeth? Firstly, why do your teeth need a whole other building and a whole other company to take care of? You know, because there's doctors that specialize in feet, podiatricians, and there's doctors that specialize in like breast cancer, and there's doctors that specialize in surgery and livers and back issues, and they're all in like one or two buildings, right? You've got the doctor's office or the hospital, but then like teeth get their whole other building, their whole other system, and then a lot of countries that do subsidize medical stuff just like don't do dentistry. Like, we'll give you all this money, like if you have a cold or you're having a baby or you need surgery on your back, but like, oh, you have a filling? No. Oh, your teeth are in major pain. Too bad. Like, why do your teeth? Why are they like a whole other jurisdiction? It really confuses me. Like, why aren't dentists in the same building as doctors? Why aren't they owned by the same people? Like the buildings, not the dentists, obviously. So it's more expensive for insurance. Yeah, but like even in Denmark, where insurance doesn't exist because all medical stuff is paid for by the government, right? Like, I'm a Danish citizen, so if I'm there and I have any issues, I just go to the doctor. It's completely free. I don't pay a thing. You know, vaccinations. I've gotten pap smears there. I've gotten like injections and all that jazz, and the government pays for that out of taxes. But then, like, I go get a filling, and it's fucking expensive. Like, even just to get my teeth cleaned, you pay through the nose. It's like, why? There's plenty. I mean, I get that it's expensive, but there's plenty of other things that are expensive, like cancer treatments, and the government pays for that, which is very sensible. I think they should. This isn't Denmark specifically, but like, not teeth. You know, oh, you want to? This is like, oh, you want to PhD in like philosophy about the lives of cats? Yes, we'll give you a grant. Like, oh, you need your wisdom teeth out? No, that'll be $4,000. It's like, what? Strange priorities. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to like talk for a while at a thing. Because there's so many things I want to do. Have you ever had there's so many things you want to do, and because there's so many things you want to do, your brain like short circuits, and then you just sit and read a book because you don't know where to start. It's like, the other thing is I have housemates, and because we all now work full time, we're often home at the same times, and like, I have this YouTube video that I want to make, but if I like set it up and do all this stuff, then they're gonna be clanging around in the kitchen and watching TV, and it like bugs me when I watch a video and the noise is bad. I don't know. IDK. I did a silly thing with my mouth, and then I had to like go to a trainer. I have to like wear this all the time, and it's so annoying when I want to eat. I have to like take it out, put it somewhere, and make sure I don't throw it out, especially at a restaurant. Like, I can't just put it in my pocket. It was really expensive because I started like this tooth was like sliding out and like biting my lip, and I was starting to like bite myself all the time, and I was bleeding. It was a bad deal, so they're trying to like push it back, but it's not quite enough work to warrant braces because I had braces right in my My top teeth are fine. So like just trying to push this one back in so I stop biting myself. It's because I like used a toothpick and flicked my bottom retainer off, like the permanent one, and it snapped off. Anyway, oh man, I'm always really hesitant to talk about mental health stuff on my channel because I feel like for me, and maybe this is just me being really self-critical, that there's a fine line between talking about mental health issues in a way that would help the audience, and I'm really into trying to figure out what kind of content would actually help people. And there's a fine line between that and like I feel like just whining, I guess. That's a bad word. I don't want to like imply that people with mental health issues that talk about it are whining. That's not what I'm saying. I just mean like if I talk about them in a way that's not helpful for people, then I don't see a point in talking about them online at all. And like I guess the question would be like, hey Britta, what situation would you be talking about mental health issues that wouldn't be helpful for people with those same mental health issues? And I guess sometimes, like I had really bad depression in high school, and then I didn't have it for a while as an adult, and then I did for a bit, and sometimes I would be in a good space, and if someone began talking about their depression, or I'd be in like a not a good like but like an okay space, and if someone would start talking about their depression in a specific way, I felt myself starting to kind of drag my brain back into that really negative thought space, and I don't want to do that to anyone else, right? Like, it's not like I talk about happy things on my channel all the time, but I also don't want to be the reason for anyone's mental health to slide backwards, if that makes sense. And the reason, I mean, I never thought about talking about mental health stuff either beyond gender dysphoria, which I guess is classified as such, but a company approached me, and I need to click my hip. A company approached me about like talking about mental health issues on the mental health day last year, and it was a deal like, oh, mention us, and if anyone signs up through your link, you get $100 or something. I can't remember what company it was, but I remember they sent me that email, and then Ash Hardell did like a promo video for them, and I wrote back to them and I was like, look, I don't really speak about mental health issues, and also Ash Hardell just did a video promoting you, and I'm pretty certain everyone who follows me follows Ash, because we talk about like very similar topics, and also they have like 1,000 more times more subscribers than me. Not 1,000 more, 1,000 times more. So like and also like at that point I didn't really know what to say. This was like last year in August, because I was in quite a good headspace, and I don't feel great. Kind of. Oh shit! Lock the door. My bad. I don't feel great talking about my bad mental health experiences when I'm in a good headspace, because I always feel like it's so fragile. Sometimes it's not, and I guess the point of therapy this time around. I've been to a therapist a couple of times. As in like a couple of times in my life of being seeing a therapist. The idea this time around is, I think, to stick with it and not just get to a good headspace, but like find a way to make that a lot more solid and less tenuous than it has been. Because, you know, I was doing my undergrad when I was 18 till when I was just before I turned 21. And I loved it. I was in such a great headspace for like at least 2.5 of those 3 years. And in such a way that I thought like, oh, I don't have depression now. I'm an adult. Everything is awesome. And then like, hey, mental health issues came back, and it was so frustrating for me because I was like, God damn it, I thought I grew up, and like all of that went away. But no. Yeah, I do have a carry case. It's big, and but I bought this cute little like it's like purse size, but it's like a masculine design. It's like leather and with black straps, and it's not a purse, but it's kind of a purse, and I should start using that more. Yeah, that's a good idea. That was actually like something I was thinking about doing tonight. It's like, oh, should I live stream or should I just talk to myself on webcam um, and then never post it? Um, but like, I think it's cool having feedback and like talking to people. Also, if I know someone's listening or potentially listening, I choose my words more carefully, and I actually think that makes me be more honest with myself. Because if I'm just talking to myself and no one's listening and no one's ever gonna hear it, then like I can get really like silly, and also I can say things that I don't really believe because I know that I don't believe them. But if I know someone's listening, then I have to like really think about how to make sure that what I say is what I mean and what I stand by. Yeah, but I guess I don't want to just busy myself away from depression and anxiety. I swear this house is haunted. You know, most houses you live in for enough time and you start to understand what the sounds are and where they're coming from and what they mean. And like you start to be able to tell if someone's walking in the other room, like who it is, because of the weight and like consistency of their footsteps. This is the first house I've ever lived in where it still makes noises that I don't know what they are. Like a noise just came from the kitchen. I swear everyone's asleep. I don't know what it is, and it's weird. Every time I have a shower, it sounds like someone's walking through the house, and there's never anyone here. Blah. I'm not superstitious, but it's a little creepy. I don't want to just busy myself away from depression and anxiety. Like, actually, this time I want to fix it. Like, I'm gonna be 30 in a few years. I want to like at least have a base of being able to adult really good, and that I can build on. You know, like when I was graduating college, I was like, yeah, by 30, I'm going to be a DOP, I'm going to be making feature films. I did actually film a feature film a couple of years ago, but we had no budget, so it wasn't great. I mean, like, it wasn't terrible. I watched it. I've seen worse. It was a lot of work. It's not going to be winning me any prizes, but it was alright. That was my goal when I graduated. And now my goal is like, don't have depression or anxiety. Like, have a solid base and secure connections with people, and like have your mental health stuff figured out. It's, you know, a slight change. I wish mental health services were free, and not for me. I mean, I don't wish that just so they were free for me. Like, I genuinely wish that people had access to good therapists, because I think it's like, if you find a therapist that works with you and works with you well, like, that can change people's lives. And I wish that that service was available to people who were underemployed or unemployed or low income, or for other reasons didn't have money to pay for one. Because therapy is expensive, and a lot of people let it slide in priorities. You know, like if you have a cold and you have depression, the cold seems a lot more tangible, and you know, a doctor can give you a timeline. You can't go to a therapist and you're like, I have this problem. How long until I'm better? Whereas a doctor can be like, these pills in 2 weeks, right? It's just like not a priority, and a lot of people that see therapists are wealthy and they get to live higher quality lives because often their circumstances have put them in situations where they're able to have a higher income. Yeah, it's weird about therapy being like there's this idea of therapy being stigmatized, but then I also see, like in a lot of TV shows, a lot of the suburban housewives will casually talk about their therapy as though it's something that everyone has, like, oh, my therapist says I should do this, or like, oh, my therapist recommended this book to me. And so, like, in like certain middle and upper middle class spaces, having a therapist is seen as okay. And I guess maybe it's treated a little bit more like having a life coach. But then, like, I totally get it. Like, at work, I don't talk about seeing a therapist. I've only told 2 of my family members that I'm seeing a therapist, and even though I know that my, well, I guess I can't say that here because it's a work thing. I know that one person at my work is seeing a therapist or has seen a therapist, and that person like talks about it relatively openly. But like, I totally wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable doing that because I guess the concern that I have is like, I don't want to be seen as unreliable, and like definitely like in very tangible ways I've seen people with mental health issues have to, for their own health and like, for self-care, have to put some work things on the back burner to take care of themselves, and like that's totally the right thing for them to do. But also, capitalism sucks and corporations are there to make money, and if they think that a person is more likely to bail, even though it might be true and they might be doing that for the good of themselves, that makes them a liability, in a corporate sense, which is not good. Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people don't go to therapy until they really, really need it. And I guess a lot of, well, I wonder if a lot of these problems could be headed off preemptively. Like with, early intervention in mental health services. I realize if people are watching this and I don't think the chat stays, I think the video stays. I'm talking to someone called Emin Arts in the chat about mental health things. Maybe I should read their comments and then reply, because otherwise I'm just replying and then people who watch it later have no idea what I'm talking about. The chat stays too. Oh, cool. I didn't know that, because I did one live stream with ContraPoints a while ago. I was so nervous and I totally word vomited everywhere, but like, I swear I'm intelligent most of the time, but I totally fangirled and like lost my words. But I feel like I went back and the chat wasn't there anymore, but maybe I was looking at it wrong. Yeah, another thing that I was kind of thinking of talking about in the I want to talk about so many things, and that video is probably going to end up being longer than it needs to be. But the video that I want to do about like more specific details about why I stopped testosterone gel is like this idea I've been thinking about like being in your body socially versus being in your body physically, and not necessarily like that they have to be separate. In fact, I think it's good if they aren't. But I definitely have been in situations where like I'm living in my body in a very physical way, but I'm not necessarily like socially aware or socially conscious. And then I've been in situations where I've been living in my body socially but not being present physically or like grounded physically. Sometimes language fails us, and I'm trying to explain this in a way that, like, for me right now it's a feeling, but you know, sometimes you can get inside your head and you can kind of get stuck in there, and it doesn't really matter what's happening around you. You're like very deep in the back of your brain, and like your thoughts seem very big and very loud and very imposing. And then sometimes, especially if you do a sport that has a lot of adrenaline, like I just played laser tag for a couple of hours, and like the entire time I was playing laser tag, there were no thoughts going through my head except like dark, turn the corner, go back, run, like just these ideas of like directions and responsiveness, right? So I was very much in my body physically. I can be at the gym and be working out and be like in my head and also physically present, or like swimming, doing laps. I can be in my head but also physically in my body. And there's like this socially present if you're sitting. Like I said, I was at a house party earlier. I was sitting there. I was talking to this woman that I just met, and we were having a conversation. And I was in the conversation. I was not in my head, and I wasn't necessarily like in my body. I guess being in something is like, for me, where your awareness is, or your hyper awareness is at the time. So like I wasn't in my head, I wasn't necessarily in my body, I was in the conversation. So I was socially present at that moment. Like I was in that exchange, I was in that experience. And like for me, being on testosterone gel was something that I wanted to do. I mean, firstly, I thought it might help with some mental health issues I was having, and it didn't. It didn't make it worse either, so whatever, but it didn't help. But the other reasons that I wanted to go on it were to do with my being like in my body in a physical sense. But then when I was in situations in a social sense, like everything to do with testosterone just felt wrong. Like even like my voice is a little bit deeper than it was, and it's staying this way, and that's okay, I guess. It took me a little while to get used to, but sometimes it'll like drop a little bit. I think I'm just kind of used to speaking at a level, so I've been doing that, but maybe my natural kind of effortless voice level is a little lower, and sometimes my voice will drop into that. And people, I guess people in the Bay, and not Japan, because that's a different place, people in the Bay that I speak to still read me as female for the most part when I talk to them, so I guess my timbre or my levels haven't quite hit like a male zone. I don't know, what do you think? Does my voice sound particularly male or female? I'll try to like speak for the next minute at like the level that it feels the most effortless. But anyway, like I'm fine with my slight voice drop that I got from being on T-Gel, but like being in my body or in myself socially, so like it's not necessarily my body, being present socially, everything to do with T, like didn't feel like me. It didn't feel like where I wanted to be, or who I was, who I am. The only times that like I'd really feel good about being on T were when I was like at the gym, when I was working out, and then like I thought that it was kind of helping with my period, but I think mostly the Myrena's done that fine. The Myrena's doing fine enough, it doesn't need help. And yeah, it was also kind of I decided that I wanted to do the therapy thing without also having the T gel as a variable. Um, I wanted to see if I could get to a good place mentally without having other components that might not be working for me. If that makes sense. So, I don't know. I was very into pushing my body to its physical limits, but I actually think I feel better in my body if I do a little bit less exercise, but not a lot less exercise, and then spend more time socializing and doing art and like things that are physical but not necessarily draining, like fire spinning or slacklining. I want to learn how to play guitar. That's kind of a little bit physical, but not a ton. I'm really into the idea of acrobatics, but I'm also really weird about being upside down. It's strange, like I'd totally hang glide or paraglide or like, I don't know, do zip lining and stuff. You know, heights and speed and falling is fine, but like being upside down over anything, I feel that freaks me out. Well, that's interesting. I'm considering taking tea right now, and it's definitely more interesting to me in a social context than just for myself. Yeah. Social situations are strange. I was like, I love social interactions, but it's hard because you kind of see yourself in relation to others a lot of the time, and sometimes the things I'm thinking about are like, what gender are they reading me as? How does that make them feel? What do they see my sexual orientation as? What is theirs? Does that change the dynamic as well? Is there like, are these relational aspects like going to make our exchange different? Okay, yeah, that's like really different from my chest dysphoria. Like, I had dysphoria about my chest regardless of whether I was around people or not. It was all about the way that I experienced my own body, the way that I felt in my own body. Whoa, it's really weird. I just noticed talking about having chest dysphoria, like right now in this moment, I can't remember what it felt like specifically because it's been so long. Oh, that's a really cool feeling. Like, my chest has been flat for so long that right now trying to explain to you what my dysphoria felt like when I had breasts, like I kind of can't. Or like I can explain with words, but I can't bring that emotion or that feeling up anymore. Like it's gone because I haven't experienced it for so long. That's really cool. Um, Gosh, wow. Yeah, I had a lot of problems with my breasts. Um, a week before I had top surgery, we were at a festival, and just because I wanted to see, I guess, do a social experiment with myself, I went around topless at this festival. This was a week before top surgery, just with my tits out. There were a few other people there who had breasts who were walking around, so I didn't feel like super out of place, and it was like pretty. It was like a hippie festival, and I did that because I wanted to like triply make sure that I wasn't getting top surgery for like other people's perspective of me. And like it totally wasn't. I was super comfortable being topless in public. I walked around for like 4 hours with no top on, and like it didn't faze me at all. Like my so that kind of showed me that the social perception of me wasn't a problem that I was having. It was literally just like having breasts in any scenario, like constant dysphoria. Whereas I guess, because like yeah, surgery changes the shape of your body, but it doesn't change your well, unless you have facial surgery. I'm talking about top surgery. Top surgery doesn't change your face. It doesn't like change your voice. It doesn't give you facial hair or not. It doesn't, those are the things I feel like people look at when they interact with you and the way that they read you. The customer service voice, yes, I totally feel that. This is my voice talking to you right now on the internet, just hanging out. It's 2 a.m. I'm awake. Why? I'm not sure. But okay, so I'm at work. Hi, how are you? How's it going? All right, we'll see you next week on the 23rd, and we're open from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., so feel free to come back and drop the gear off anytime before then. Have a good day. It definitely goes up. Absolutely, there is totally a customer service voice. I totally feel that. I feel you. And then if I revert to my regular voice while talking to a customer, it feels really strange, even though I swear this is just my voice. One of the top managers at work, she's super lovely. She comes in occasionally to speak to us, and if a customer comes in, she'll greet them really warmly. But she has the most customer service voice. Like she sounds like the robots that call you, and you can't tell to begin with if they're human or not, because their voice is too perfect. She sounds like that, and I'm like, whoa, it's just silky smooth, and she doesn't stutter or say or anything, and she has this she's barely ever out the front, but when she is it's eerie. She must have done front desk stuff before, I'm sure. Yeah, so my breast dysphoria was constant, and then I don't know, tea made me a little stronger, and that was fun, but now I'm not even climbing because of my injury. And I'm realizing that social interactions and art are both two things that are a lot more important to me. And cameras are getting lighter, so camera gear, audio gear. I mean, audio gear is already pretty light, but camera gear and lights are getting lighter, weighing less, and that's good because that's my job. Yeah, customer service voice. I've definitely brought the customer service voice thing into other places of my life. It's strange. I'm suddenly really good at speaking to people in a really friendly way. I don't know. Sometimes I don't feel genuine, even though the first month at work I was genuinely interested in every single customer that came in, and now I'm still interested in them, but it's hard to be that excited about people 24/7. Well, 8 hours a day. Yeah, so I guess if I stop kind of challenging myself physically, if I stop comparing myself to other people and the physical goals that we can do, the physical stuff that we can do, if I just look at myself as a social person who's making art and being a human and who does exercise for health and not for getting swole, then I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like it's doing stuff for me. And oh yeah, I also had this nightmare that I was growing a beard because I was getting a few prickly hairs, and I need to epilate about twice a month now to stop my chin from getting fuzzy. It grows super slow and it's not dark at all, but that's not something I used to have to do. So every time I epilate for a couple of days after, I get this little if I got too close to the skin, I'll get a little line of zits. So the first time I really fucked up and I did my upper lip hair, and then I just had a mustache of pimples, like red hair, and I was so mortified, and I covered my whole face up with concealer, and it was like just when I started my job as well, and I was speaking to customers all day. I'm like, oh my god, how does that even happen? So now I epilate my chin like from hair to hair, but then I'll pluck this part because that doesn't cause yeah, my brother is so hairy. Like his hair grows down into his sideburns, grows down into his beard, grows down into his neck hair, grows onto his chest, all the way down to his snail trail. And well, I've seen him with his top off, but obviously he was wearing pants, so that's as far as I'm gonna go. But then his legs are super hairy as well. Um, and that's fine. He's a super cool dude. But like, I just freak out. I couldn't deal with that. It's like genetically my family is really hairy. I have a friend who has been on full dose testosterone for 8 months, and she's still using she her pronouns, and I check in with her every once in a while, and she said, you know, she'll tell me when she's ready to switch to he him, and she's not yet. Like her legs are slightly more hairy than mine, but like her arms are the same, her face is the same, like everything else is the same. And I'm like, if I was on full dose tea for 8 months, I would be a bear. Like it would just happen like this, you know? It's like so quickly. Hella body hair. I also know people go on tea and they get like growth in between hair. And you know, like what would I be looking for? What would I want out of it? I don't need testosterone. I mean, like everyone needs a little bit because otherwise it's like actually unhealthy for you. And there's a lot of endocrinologists who are trying to push for trans women to not get 100% of their testosterone blocked because like you actually do need a little bit in the system. And currently a lot of medications for trans women are blocking all of their testosterone. And there are a few like things in your body that need a bit of tea to kind of function well, but yeah. And the other thing I think's in my family is like early balding as well. So like bam, you've got hair everywhere, and then like you hit your late 20s and you've just got like none on the top. So it's all just it's fine. I know some lovely bald men and they totally rock it and that's awesome. But like for me personally, it's just not me. It's just not me. I know I was talking about feeling kind of yuck in my body, like when I wasn't on low dose tea, and then I was, and that was good. And I think it was kind of because I was so interested in pushing my body so hard. Having more testosterone in my body just like made me feel like after I'd done a physical thing that my muscles kind of just snapped back and relaxed and like chilled out quicker. Whereas now, I mean, now my T levels are super low, like far lower than most average cis females. Like I don't have a lot of testosterone in my system. I'm still not quite sure why, but like it's a very very low level. And like I consider myself strong, but like after a full day of working, I'm definitely feeling it now. Like the weariness in my muscles is definitely like more noticeable. Whereas before, like last year when I was on that full dose for like a month accidentally, there was some communication issues and I was on a full dose for a month. Not really on purpose, but like feeling in my body just how my muscles would like snap back, chill out, and be ready for more just quicker. Like I was a little bit strong, but not a lot, but like that kind of feeling of being like constantly physically ready for anything. I don't know, it's weird to explain. And you know, everyone knows that people with high testosterone in their body are stronger in general, on average, and that they don't have to work hard enough, like as much to see similar results. But just kind of feeling the truthfulness of that in myself was really interesting. But really, I mean, the big thing was I got injured and kind of having to then see myself as a social like, oh, now I have to be social. That's not what I mean. I mean like not having that space to like be able to put myself in my body physically meant I had to live in my head and my interactions with people a lot more. And kind of being forced into that situation, I realized that, especially if I got like permanently injured, because I ride a motorbike, so there's a higher chance, I guess, for me than other people to be in an accident and like have to be a wheelchair user for the rest of my life. And like just being like something like that, if I ended up having to be a wheelchair user for the rest of my life, I'd be like, well then what, like in my head I'm like, well then what's the point of having been on testosterone or like being on testosterone? And like that was a huge wake up call for me, because like that, I'm gonna admit right now, that's really fucked up, right? And that like for me tea was only for the physicality of it, and it's not who I am socially or like as a person. It's not my personality. So it was mostly kind of that. I've also sort of had to get used to, and I think I'm really good at this now, and it's actually not something I really did consciously, but something that sort of just happened, is I think of my body as non-binary, and being able to do that with having like typically female hormone levels, or like even like ultra typical female hormone levels, because my estrogen levels are like slightly above average, I think, and my T levels are like super, super low. And being able to like understand my body as a non-binary body while still being in a physical place where like I guess the general public might not think of it as non-binary, was kind of a place where I had to get myself to mentally, and it's super helpful now. Like thinking of my body as non-binary, I mean, partially because of top surgery, partially because of my arena has stopped my periods, partially because of like just the way I think of myself in general, and the way I feel myself in my body, and also like some things that I guess are kind of socially constructed, but sort of feed into that. Like my shoulders are broader than my hips. I went to a women's gym once, and they had an intake thing where you had to tick a form, and the lady was helping me tick the form, and one of them was, what shape are you? And they had hourglass, triangle, or pear, I think. And so like hourglass is your shoulders and your hips are the same width and your waist is a bit skinnier. Triangle is your shoulders, or like obviously your shoulders aren't like shorter, smaller than your hips, waist, because that would be weird. But like, was it triangle or rectangle? Maybe it was rectangle. Yeah, rectangle is your shoulders and your hips and your waist are the same, and then pear is like people who are like super curvy hips. But there was no option at this women's gym, and like the body type, for any body type where the shoulders were broader than the hips. So the lady was like, oh, obviously you're an hourglass or whatever. I'm like, yeah, we can say that, but like I'm very sure, like I'm pretty sure I've even measured this. My shoulders are definitely wider than my hips. And for no other reason than that's just how my body is. And like little things like that where kind of the world is sort of telling you that your body doesn't fit into the binary of what is expected, especially if you haven't pursued any kind of transition. It's like a very interesting space to be in. And I don't want to say that those experiences made me feel like I had to be non-binary and I couldn't be like just a lesbian woman. Like that's not the reason why. I'm saying that like at the time that was really confusing and annoying, and obviously it still is, because some women fit outside of these pre-assumed boxes. But like understanding that some people see me as non-binary or not fitting into those boxes helps me see my body in that way as well. I find it useful, and I'm still in a position where I can't quite explain why I find looking at my body as non-binary useful. I guess I like the idea of like having control over myself. I'm not really like a controlling kind of person. I don't feel like I need control over people or stuff, but like I like being able to own myself and my experience in my life in that way. And the other thing is, like, generally people with lower testosterone and higher estrogen live longer. I have like this, I think, pretty normal kind of existential terror of dying. Like, the people in my family don't have pretty good, the men in my family don't have pretty good track records. Whereas my grandma just passed away, she was 94. You know, my dad died when he was 62, and that's just like another 30 years of being alive. And I'm not saying like the only reason was hormones, but like consistently all over the world, cis women live longer than cis men, and there are kind of two theories. One is hormones, one is chromosomes. It's possible it's a bit of both. Actually, I think one is that it's hormones and the other is that it's hormones and chromosomes. I don't think there's any theory that it's just chromosomes, because there's like pretty substantial evidence that high testosterone is linked to more heart issues. Yeah. Anyway, I should probably go to bed. Oh my god, it's almost 2:30. This has been good. Thanks for sticking around, Emon. It's been cool to like actually have people here. I honestly thought I was just gonna be talking to myself. I was like, oh, I'll turn the chat on and like see. But this has been good. I've kind of just like, obviously I have friends who I can talk to, but it's sort of weird to be like, hey, can I sit down and like talk at you for 2 hours about life stuff? Like, I like when I talk to my friends to have slightly more, not like structure, like this is what we're talking about today, but kind of you center the conversation around like give and take and opinions and ideas about particular topics. And I felt like I needed to talk stream of consciousness style for a couple of hours, just get ideas out there. I also know, like, sometimes, especially when I was in high school and then again when I first started my master's degree, there'd be moments where I just kind of needed to feel like there was someone out there that sort of was in the same mind space as me, and sometimes I'd jump onto live streams with people that I sort of followed, and sometimes just listening to people talk, and you might not really have much in common with them or what they're saying, but then there's just that one thing that you're like, hey, and something clicks for you, or you're like, oh, I thought I was the only person who felt like that, or like I'd never articulated that in that way before. You know, I found that quite helpful. And oh man, I came back from Japan so inspired to create, and then all these work deadlines hit me, and it's just like I love the X-Men, and I always think if I had a power, it would either be Kitty's power or maybe Angel's power, because I don't know, I think that'd be really cool. A lot of dreams I have Kitty's power. Like, if I think that if I'm not sure that if I'm asleep or not, and this isn't often, normally I'm pretty sure, but if I'm not, I don't pitch myself. I'll like find a solid surface and I'll put my hand against it and I'll try and like relax my atoms and see if they go through the object. And if my hand goes through the solid object, then I'm asleep. And if it doesn't, then I'm awake. But obviously really tired, because I feel like if you're awake, you don't need to check most of the time. But like in practical terms, I actually feel like the most practical X-Men power would be multiple men's, because you're just like, oh, I have like 10 different things that need doing today. bam, 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 and then there's 10 of you, and you just go and do the things. I mean, the other option would just be to, like, work less and do more art. But that would be not what the cogs of capitalism want. I still haven't watched ContraPoint's latest video on the problems with capitalism. I want to go do that now. Right, thanks for watching, and next time I do a live stream, I'll warn people and do it at a more sensible time. Alright, have a good night, or morning, or whatever it is where you are. Oh no, I have to figure out how to stop. Oh, here we go. Alright, latest.